Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, here with Brandon. Episode 10 of Clock Talk, Brandon.
Yeah, it is.
We've made it this far. I'm here, you're here, and we're glad that everyone else is here too. We have things to talk about, let's get right to it.
Absolutely.
First things first, a little over a week ago now, we had our first Shop League tournament post thank you event, and it went well. We combined to win 7 of our 8 games, and we both ended up in the top 3, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it was. You ended up sweeping the tournament, so congratulations, Colton.
Thank you. I accept this with a speech, I guess. I don't know. It did feel really good to get out there and play well with a deck that I think is good, that I have not been playing to its full potential. So it was nice to play well. 4 games in a row, and I feel like I finally played the deck to the potential that it has always had. The potential I've seen in this deck for the past 6 months that I've been building it and playing it and focusing on it with this intensity. This tournament, these kinds of games were the games that I kind of had in mind. I knew it had the ability to do what it did, and I just needed to pilot it well. So I finally got my nonsense together and put together a good day. And then you went 3-1 with Slime. We're going to get into the individual matchups in a second, but you also went 3-1.
Yeah,
You took Slime again.
I did. I won the difficult matchups that I thought I was going to lose to, and nearly lost to the matchups that I thought I was going to win. So it was a really interesting game. Yeah, well, let's dive into it a little bit more. Do you want to go first and talk about your victory run and some of the matchups you played against?
Sure. First game, I played against a new guy, a relatively new player who was playing the Alicization trial deck. I basically won that because it was a trial deck, and you obviously want to see more players come through and play. So it's we had 10 people again. That's the second tournament in a row we've had 10 people, which was really nice.
And it's a different 10.
Yeah, and we had some different people, which was we had some people come through from the other side of the state, which was great. Some people we didn't have last time, so I was really excited. And actually, the person who won the last tournament couldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a really big group is starting to form with more consistency at our locals for the major events anyway, which is really nice. But yeah, game one against the Alicization trial deck. Second game was against a deck that I've played against before, but not with Apocrypha. It's the Gungale land list. It plays the level 1 bomb combo and the bodyguard that jumps out of the suitcase at level 2. It's a clever deck, and it's played by someone who has played it for a while and has crafted it into something that's really cohesive. So even though it's not the strongest set, this is a really well-constructed deck. So, and it's not a good matchup for me because I need to get reverses at level 1 with the Astolfo. So in order to plus, I need to lose my level 1 combo, which sucks. I don't pop the Astolfo back into hand, and and I give my opponent an empty board. So realistically, I think I should have lost that game. I had trouble getting climaxes into hand, but my opponent had more climax trouble than I did. So she was out a lot of climaxes early. Didn't refresh well. I think she refreshed like 5, just because of triggers. So, and still, I thought I was going to lose. We both thought that there was 1 climax left in her last 3 cards, and there wasn't. And I stuck 3 off a trigger and then got her on the refresh. So, obviously you take your wins where you can get them, and, Weiss being what it is, sometimes you get a lucky win. I will take my lucky win, but that Gungale deck is legitimately very good. I have a lot of respect for that deck, especially it had all the pieces in it worked together really, really nicely. So, not an easy deck to play into. Third round was against an Apocrypha Standby list, which I've putzed around with Apocrypha Standby just because I've played Apocrypha for a long time now. So I've tried to make Apocrypha Standby, and I just honestly don't think it works very well. I don't think there are great targets, and I don't think the combo on the Standby Climax is very good. So it's what it is. I got pushed early, but I compressed really well. I ended up being 8 out of 22 in my second deck. So I canceled 4 times, including the burn 5 on the Siegfried. So, yeah, I played well. So last game was against Memory Snow. Memory Snow is an interesting deck to play against with Apocrypha because all of my off finishers at level 3 don't do anything because they're both burn ones. But you can still get over with the combo, with the Mordred combo. If you already have a card flipped over in level, you're burning for 2, which gets over the leave everything to me rem in memory. So I actually didn't end up getting the combo off at all. I did get ahead, and compression was really good for me. I figured out how to compress really well with Apocrypha. I figured out how to pay out climaxes and how to kind of manipulate my deck. There's a lot of deck manipulation in terms of how many cards you have left. You can get through your deck at the speed that you want to with the Mill 4 Frankensteins, the Brainstormer, etc. So there are ways in the top check Mordred as well. So there are a lot of ways to get through the deck. So I've been getting a lot better at refreshing before I get to level 2. So I'm sitting with 5 cards in clock, and so I'm refreshing with less than 30 cards in the deck and all 8 climaxes. So my compression was actually pretty decent with Apocrypha, which is something that I've struggled with making more consistent. So that was really the reason I won this game, because I got to 3-1, I healed down to 3, and I just hit 6 off the top. Because my opponent's compression was okay, but realistically I would have survived another turn just because I had, again, really good compression. So now that I have figured out how to compress Apocrypha well, I feel like that was the kind of the missing piece that took that list from being okay and decently competitive to this can actually win events now. So I still don't think Apocrypha is like regionals good, but I mean, it did win a competitive shop event, so I'm happy with it, and I'm happy with how I played for the first time coming out of an event in a long time. I'm very happy with how I played, so it felt good. But you, honestly, despite the fact that I went 4-0, you might have had the more eventful night going 3-1 with Slime.
Oof.
That first matchup was
intense. Yeah, no, so I brought Slime. So my first matchup was against a guy that had won previously, that I had lost to previously. The last time I faced him, I ended up losing. He was playing Goblin Slayer, I was playing SAO. This time we came in, and we both had Slime decks. And we had relatively similar deck build. So the deck builds themselves, we knew what each other had. We knew essentially what each other was playing. We knew what we needed to do in order to make our game plans go. So I did have a little bit more experience playing into Slime with Slime than he did, and I think that's actually what made the difference in that game. I was able to deny getting his Shizus into memory, whereas he sent mine basically straight to memory. So I had the early play condition ready to go where he didn't, and so he was a little bit behind in the game there. The game was very much a back and forth game, even with that. Both had good compression, both had parts to elongate the game. So it was a pretty long game. Level 3 comes around, and he's unable to close, and then I'm able to finish out the win from there. As Slime does. So that matchup, I ended up taking the first one. we were definitely the last ones to finish, but it was a good game, and it was a hard-fought one victory.
How many turns did you guys go back and forth at level 3? Swinging into, both of you obviously being very compressed at that point.
Level 3?
I mean, you probably had 3 turns each at level 3. Like, my game finished early enough, so I basically got to watch all of level 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was about 2 to 3 turns each. Partly because with slime, you have, especially if you're facing against slime, your better bet is to play more defensively than it is to play offensively. Yeah. Your goal is out-compress, out-heal to get your victory.
And that was pretty definitively the most compelling game, I think, of the whole evening, was watching that game.
It was definitely interesting. I think I had another matchup that was actually really close. And I'll hit on that when I get there. The next matchup I had was against this again, the standby Apocrypha deck. This matchup I actually lost to, especially early on. His standby encoring with the so he had the 9/5 Rider of Red, 9/5 being if you have the other characters in play, and it's essentially a mirror of Shizu, except Shizu's a tiny bit more powerful. I was also able to get the back row assist in. For his standby pieces, he was bleeding hand to keep him alive. He got to level 3 first. I was at 2-6. He was at 3-0. And he plays the Siegfried Burn 5s. I'm decently compressed. Not super, but not terrible. I'm like 6-24, 6-22, something like that. And then he sticks 8 damage for the win. Straight. He was able to compress very well with the deck, so it was kind of a back and forth game with that. But ultimately, he was able to stick 8 damage at the end game with the Burn 5, and then followed up with an attack for 3. So it ended up being a really close game. I did end up losing this one, so I was at point 1-1. My next matchup, I think, it was my other really interesting matchup. So my next matchup was against Fujimi Fantasia Bunko, and this one was going to be a very interesting matchup. It was my first time playing against this matchup specifically. I played against the deck before, but not with Slime. I was familiar with what the deck would do and what the deck wants to do, so I tried my best to play into that a little bit. Level 1 is the Shizu's kind of crashing into the wall, so that way they go to memory and forcing my opponent to swing too big, so to kind of pull the cancels into play there. And then when I finally make level 2, to bring out the early play Shizu, the back row assist, and then side in order to have my opponent crash into the wall to be able to then back it up. So when I back up, I'm up to 15 with the assist in the back row and the 2/5 Leafa counter. So not only am I drawing cancels, but I'm getting power up to 15. And then I was able to salvage salvage it to get it back into hand to be able to counter again. So like I was able to take down the wall that Fujimi wants to build up, and it made it harder for the Fujimi player to close out the victory there. I also did have a little bit of luck as well towards the end. He was 2-7. I needed to stick 5 at the refresh point to win the game, and I was able to stick the damage in the right order to negate the cancels to be able to get enough damage for the win. Could I have survived another turn? Maybe. My compression was decent. It wasn't great. But it definitely... The matchup initially seemed to be more in the favor of Fujimi. but I was able to turn it around and win board against Fujimi Bunko. And that's one of the few things that Fujimi Bunko has going forward is board and board presence. The idea being to try to get the level 3 global assists that grant upwards towards 3,000 power across board. So that's the goal of the deck, and I was able to prevent it from achieving its goal. The last matchup was against Batman Ninja. My opponent was able to play Climax every turn, as well as Trifield, and ended up being a really close game because when damage sticks, damage sticks.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, I feel like we come back to this relatively often. Like, there are reasons why the best players in the world are the ones who are consistently winning tournaments, getting invited to Worlds, etc., right? Like, you have to be really good at this game to win on a consistent basis. That being said, it's a card game with a best-of-1 format.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the numbers don't check out.
Oh, yeah. I did end up winning this matchup, but it just was a lot closer than I initially thought it was going to be, and / wanted it to be. He was able to double to triple cancel almost every turn and play Climax.
As a Slime player, obviously, you're trying to get as many things into memory as you reasonably can, compress way down, and basically take no damage just because you have so many Climaxes in deck.
Yes.
Despite that, the 2 games that you had the most trouble with were both games where you got stuck. Well, at some point you got stuck for big damage. So coming out of that event, do you think that that's something where, like, did the memory compression engine just not go off for you in those games, or like, was there a reason, do you think, why the damage was sticking for you, or for your opponents rather?
Well, the Batman Ninja game was more of a just damage over time as opposed to consistent, like, big damage. It was just a matter of Climaxes consistently coming onto field always. So essentially, it was like having a 2-soul on field for each lane every turn. Even level 3, he only had Batman Restander, and like even then, I'm triple canceling. But with the Restander, he swings 4 times, so I can't cancel everything every turn.
Right. It's just a matter of volume of swings.
One thing I do that I also need to keep a better eye on is I like to, when I get to my ideal board state, I like to sit on it as opposed to try to tweak what's going on with my deck. When I should really be doing a little bit more deck manipulation at that point. Mainly because I like the effects that are going on field, and I don't want to take away from that. But at the same time, I need to compromise a little bit there in order to make the deck state in a better spot. Like, my compression was okay. It could have been better. I will admit that I didn't initially take Batman as seriously, and I think I paid for that a little bit. So then I had to kind of play catch up a little bit to be able to close out that game.
But overall, again, we won 7 out of 8. I'm pretty happy with how that went overall. And for you, this is your 3rd straight event.
My
finishing
my
top
third
3?
third. Yeah. Overall, with Slime at the tournament level or locals level, I'm 6-2,
something like that. Yeah.
Playing against a variety of different decks.
No, I think that I think that your Slime build is definitely proving itself for sure. So yeah, that was our first Shop League tournament after the thank you event. I think I was talking to the tournament organizer afterward. I think the thank you event and both of the monthly Shop League tournaments are what are going to go into the final Shop League standings. Plus, there's going to be like participation points and things like that. So I don't know, but more importantly, I think are the individual events, and this last one went really well for both of us.
Yeah.
So you feel that pressure. I'm not gonna lie. Like when you're sitting here at the table, it's like, oh man, if I lose this game, I'm gonna have to talk about it on the show. I'm gonna have to talk about it. I really need to win this game. So moving on to probably the most important news from the last couple of weeks, at least in my opinion. We got our first look at some of the cards from the new Heaven's Feel set that is coming out in JP in December, and presumably will be coming to English next summer. No official announcement on that yet.
And I haven't seen an international release yet for Heaven's Feel, the movie.
Yeah. So it's reasonable to expect, however, that we will be getting Heaven's Feel at least sometime in 2021, probably summer, if the normal 6-month timeline ends up holding up. Which, I mean, realistically, we could get an announcement any day now of a release date for Heaven's Feel.
For the movie itself. Yeah.
For the movie itself and for the set, I think. We could get it at any point, basically saying this is coming out in June or whatever. So, but in any case, 7 cards were previewed. No art, there was some art, but the art and the cards are not together. So we don't know necessarily what each individual card will look like, what text is going to be on what card. But for our purposes, we have the text of 7 cards. So link in the description to the Facebook post from Randall Muramoto in the Weiss Schwarz global community. Thank you for translating these, Randall. I can't read Japanese. We appreciate you. You're doing the Lord's work. So we have these 7 cards. Let's go through them one by one. First things first. 3/2 Shiro with Master and Weapon trait. On play, put a card from the waiting room underneath it as a marker. At the start of your attack phase, you can pay 1, and if you don't have a climax, you can pay that 1 to choose a climax from underneath this card, put it in your climax area, and when this card attacks, if you have 4 more other Master of Servant characters, you can choose a character and give it +2 soul. So in short, 3/2 with essentially a pay 1 climax fix attached, as well as a soul pump on attack. I think this is decent. I don't know. This is I feel like this is pretty clearly designed for the yellow Saber soul pump deck that has never truly been finished. It's never really had the final piece to make it work, which we will get to. I think this is for that. I don't know. I don't know if I like it. It's fine. It's not bad, but I don't know if I would play it. Maybe as a one-of.
Yeah, I think it's a
as a climax fix.
I would play it if I was going to play it. It would be played as a one-of in combo with the Saber that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, as well as so let's just talk about the next Saber then, and we'll talk about what the top end of yellow Fate looks like now, because we actually have, I think, at the very least, a decent yellow Fate deck now. 3/2 Saber, Servant Weapon traits. On play, heal 1. It combos with the choice. Pitch 3, and you can give a character 2 instances of burn 3, cancel burn. So in my head, my initial thought when I saw this, aside from jumping for joy because, oh my gosh, Saber Waifu will actually be playable. First things first, I'm looking at this and going, I'm putting this on the Musashi Saber. We already have a cancel burn Saber that exists that sits at 12,000 to the full field, and it gets top check +1 cancel burn. So, and pair this with the other Saber, the Sword Shrouded Saber, that has a pay 1, pitch 1 that gives everything 500 and a soul, but it also creates an empty slot by bouncing one of your opponent's characters back into hand. So kind of at a minimum now, if you get all 3 of these into the field, that Musashi Saber is going to be swinging for 5, because 2, climax, open space, and then the sword shrouded +1. So you're swinging for 5, and you can stick. Not only does it have the Musashi burn, you can also stick the 2 burn, 3 cancel burns on it. And also the King of Ideals saber from 0 that neg souls and on reverse gives another character a soul. The damage floor for the saber top end is legitimate now. This is exactly the card that the yellow top end needed, and it got it. And now finally, I think we're actually looking at a saber top end that probably isn't like meta competitive, but at the very least you can take it to locals and win games in a way that you couldn't before. Like, that's my initial take as, you know, as Saber's, you know, biggest fanboy. I'm just thrilled to see another good Saber card. Brandon, what's your take? Which will probably be a little bit more nuanced and a little more grounded than mine.
I think initially the 3-2 Shiro and the 3-2 Saber are designed to play together. Because when being able to grant 2 soul on top of with the climax in play, that's 3 soul to another character. You're looking at granting that to the character that you want to have the damage canceled, so you can burn 3 twice. So whether that's the I agree that I think it's the Musashi Saber that you would want to put it on, so you can get an additional burn on top of the other 3, the two threes. Beyond that, like,
if I'm looking at this soberly, it's like between all of that, I think there's actually a legitimate top end here.
Oh, I agree. I think that this combined with the Musashi Saber is the ideal route. Especially with discard 3 characters. Which is a really hard I say really hard. It can be a very hard condition to meet.
It is. It's a lot. That's a lot, and that's
it's also an end game piece.
I think that
if you're using it, you're saying this is the turn I win.
This is exactly like I mean, to be honest, that's a very Saber aesthetic, right? You know, everything goes into the final swing to win the game, kind of thing. You know, you yell Excalibur across the table, turn your card sideways, and you know, hope that something sticks and you win the game. Like that's obviously the goal here.
I'm just imagining you shouting Excalibur at locals now. You shout Excalibur and twist the card sideways. Do you like stand up when you do it?
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now that I have that image in my head.
Yeah. That aside. No, I think that, like, if this misses, you lose.
I mean, yeah, like you're setting it up. Like you need to be able to set up more than just. Like if you're setting it up, you might as well set it up instead of 5. Set up for 7 if you can.
Oh yeah, no, you're setting up to swing for 5 or 6 soul, and then if it cancels, you're getting, you know, 2, 3, and 3 or something. Like, and that's with 1 card. Which, 2 things. 1, getting back to what you're saying about the cost, pitching 3 is going to. That tells me that we are going to potentially see a better level 1 yellow combo, because as of right now, the one that we have, I think the Meguro, the top check 4, is just, it's fine. It's okay, but it's not great. So I'd love to see them print something a little better for that. But secondly, if you clear a lane with the Sword Shrouded Saber, you can't money counter this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have a character facing it that allows you to play that counter. So I don't know. I feel like this gets around a lot of things. It gets around more or less. It gets around burn 1 as well, because you know, unless you trigger a 0 on the Musashi +1, you're still you're burning for more than one. I don't know. I don't think this is. I think obviously swinging into stuff that has heavy compression, like okay, I burn for three times. Well, if you're 4 out of 8, it doesn't matter. So I think that there are still definitely bad matchups for this, but I think this is certainly playable. I think that this makes Saber Waifu much better than it was before. I think it fixes the main. It fixes the power problem on the top end for that deck.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that one enough, though. It's been mostly me fangirling, so we're gonna move on.
Because
we have two.
I'm just thinking with the money counter. Yeah. You'd have to be able to wind it away. Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking the money counter is the big counter to it, but if you can use Sword Shrouded, then yeah, you
can protect yourself, which is that's especially because I think that the money counter. I mean, I'm sold on the money counter. I think it's a great thing to have in the decks that have it. But I also think that I think we're getting to the point where, a handful of decks have it, so you kind of need to be ready for it
especially when your combo relies so much on one card.
Yes, if you're going to crutch on one card, then you absolutely need to have exactly. You need to have ways around it, and they also get big too. So like, pretty much everything Saber is a big card that swings for heavy soul damage, which makes perfect sense. But I think that's also. I don't think there are a lot of weaknesses to this top end. Like I think there are some obvious, it's pretty easy to overswing with this. But if you're committed to just trying to stick unreasonable amounts of damage, then screw it. Slam a 2-soul and go for it or something. I don't know. Like this is that kind of deck. So moving on, we have a pair of green zeros, which you like more than I do.
I like one of the two.
There's a 0/0 Sakura. It's a clock bomb, and on your opponent's turn, when it gets reversed, you can pay 1 to keep it on field for a second.
Yeah, for a little bit longer.
It's a clock bomb. If you like clock bombs, there you go. You have a clock bomb.
The other one being a power pump when you play Climax, and if you rest it, you can neg your opponent's characters by 1,000 power.
Yes. Okay, so go. I know that we disagree on this one, so you go ahead and make your argument. Go ahead, tell me.
Sure.
Sell me on this card.
It's a plus 2k power difference. I think it's more effective if you're playing into sets that have the 500 power on reverse do effect thing. A lot of those go to memory, whether it's Saikano, whether it's Memory Snow. You have those cards that do those things. These eliminates them. And it also prevents your opponent from plussing off of them with the negative 1,000 power. It also grants 1,000 power to if you need reverses. It can be nice. I think it's okay. I don't know that it's the best card in the world, but I think it's going to be helpful if you're intentionally playing against sets that have those and plus off of those greatly.
And I would say that outside of teching this in for a local meta where you're playing into a lot of things like Memory Snow, I don't see this getting played. And the reason I don't see this getting played is because you are taking up a back row slot to add 1,000 power to one thing only when a climax is played.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already, that's already going to happen infrequently enough so that this is going to be, sitting in your back row doing nothing except for negging your opponent 1,000 power, which has some utility. It has some use, but I wouldn't put this in the back row for the same reason that I would only in a deck where I absolutely needed reverses play a power pump. Yeah. In the back row, like it's basically all this is a power pump. It's literally all this is, and I don't mind power pumps but I don't think this is better than the other level zeros in this set.
No, like realistically, you're looking at what we talked about this a little bit earlier, before recording. Like essentially, your back row looks like the Clock Encore Shiro as well as the Brainstormer that allows you to hand fix. Like those are the two cards you would be running in that for that deck in the back row. Like especially early on.
Right.
I don't know that I would say that this is better than those as much as it is. If you need a power pump, this is a better variant of a power pump. Because when you want the power, you're most likely going to have a climax to play. Because you're looking for those reverses for your combo. So this would allow you a 2,000 point variance at the top of what you would normally already have. Especially since Sakura doesn't get very big anyway. If you're looking at a Sakura level 1 combo, this could help her to get some of those reverses that she needs to be able to go search.
And, this is also where, and we're going to get into the level 1 rider combo that might potentially replace the irreplaceable existent Sakura at level 1, potentially. That's, we'll get into that more in a second. But, looking at the list, you want the Encore Shiro and you want the Brainstormer Sakura in your back row. That is your back row. That's your back row literally until level 3 with Fate. So, and I just don't think, that this is better than those. Basically,
for that deck, I don't think this would be an inclusion into that deck. I think you would have to go into a different deck.
And I don't know, I guess, if you're going to put it in a deck, you're going to put it in a deck that crutches on a level 1 combo, which to a certain extent this does, or a level 1 reverse combo specifically, and this does. The Sakura only gets this 6,500 with the climax, which, is decent, but it's not huge. If it doesn't show up in this list, I don't really see a list where it shows up. Unless you're playing something that's, way off meta. But realistically, if you're playing any kind of competitive list in Fate, you're almost certainly running the Shiro, and you are likely running, if not the Sakura Brainstormer, one of the other Brainstormers. I just don't think there's room in the back row. I don't think this is a bad card necessarily. I just don't think there's in a set like this where your back row is more or less set in stone. I don't see this crashing that party.
I think that it would be for a very different deck than what we see here. What we've seen to be the Fate meta deck. I only say that because Fate has so much potential with the number of sets. That I think there's enough variance in Fate for there to be a second deck. And I think that with Heaven's Feel 2, we may see that emerge.
Fair enough. I mean, there's nothing that I've seen that makes me want to play this card in Heaven's Feel 2. If maybe there's something that unless it has some kind of very specific combo with something else, I don't really see this card getting played.
That's fair.
Moving on to the 2 level 1 combos, the Rider and the Reen. Both of these are interesting for different reasons. I think the Rider is the one that's going to garner the most attention right away because it basically could replace the irreplaceable existence Sakura, theoretically. It's on a gold bar. When your opponent levels up, if the gold bar is in your climax area and this Rider is in your front row, choose a Master Servant from your waiting room, stock it, and then look at the top card of your deck. If that card is a character, essentially, add it to hand. This is basically a better version of the Bunny Girl. But instead of being on reverse, it's on level up, which choosing to play the Rider level 1 specifically, it affects the way that you play the deck because you're crutching on getting to level 1 first, which you can do with the Clock Encore, but it does, you are a lot more concerned about getting to level 1 first now than you were before. What do you think?
I think crutch a little bit more on getting to level 1 first to get this into field. I think that it's okay. I don't think it's going to replace Sakura, only because it doesn't grant you the additional you can plus off of it regarding like stock, and so you're able to stock more, and you're able to additionally add into hand potentially if if your opponent levels up. Whereas Sakura, again, if you get the reverse, you can then search for the card you're looking for. Sakura gives you a little bit more control, whereas this one is a little bit more random in what you get into your hand. But if you're playing this one alongside of the Sakura bombs at level 1 anyway, where you ditch a climax and you can basically do the same thing, because this will help you trigger more too with that, because you could potentially the potential for triggering is there more. So you would have the climaxes to then ditch with the Sakura bomb to be able to do it. So I can definitely see the benefit of running this card. I don't know that it's going to surpass the irreplaceable Sakura because
it's irreplaceable. What can you do? It's in the name.
But I think it's definitely an interesting profile regarding the combo. This one specifically, this combo, we're beginning to see more of.
Yeah. This profile is also in the upcoming Bow for Reset. And I like this idea, honestly. I think that it's a different look. It does something different. It forces players to make a decision about what they want to chance. Like you said, you have a little bit less control over the game state with something like this, but you're also guaranteeing yourself 3 clean stock, which is huge because you get to choose. Unlike the Union, you get to choose, and you're still probably plussing a couple of cards off of this. And if you trigger the gold bar, so I feel like this is good, and I think it's good enough that it will be play tested. But like you said, I don't know if it's going to replace the Sakura. It'll be interesting. I think there will definitely be builds where people opt to use this instead, for sure. I think there will be people who like this better. I don't know if that's going to be the majority of Fate players. I would probably say no, that it won't be, but there will be people who play this. And it'll be interesting to see how it does long term.
I mean, Fate is a very stock-intensive endgame. So, I can see the allure of playing this to help get that stock early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I definitely think it's going to be interesting.
So, moving on to the other level 1, the Reen. This is going to get less attention just because red is not a popular color for Fate decks, which makes sense because red Fate does not have a great top end. But looking at this card for what it is, it's basically the Shizu from Slime minus the memory kick. It gets 500 for each other Master or Servant character. It's on a gate, and you mill 2, and then you choose a level X or lower Master or Servant, X equaling the level of those 2 cards combined. So you get decent selectivity with this. Fate tends to play a lot of level 2 and 3 cards, especially because the Archer Reen free refresh is a 4 of in a lot of lists. A few different cards at the top end. So you'll end up getting your level 2s and 3s off of this. You'll especially very likely get a lot of your if you want to dig for a refresh off of this, you will almost certainly get at least 1 copy of the Reen and Archer or the heroic Reen and Archer. At the very least, you'll be getting those off of this for sure. More likely than not. It's on attack instead of on reverse, which the old Reen is an on reverse that only gets up to, I think it's 5,500. Yeah, you need to have 3 or more other Reen or Archers on the field, which really minimizes the usefulness of the Reen combo, because now you have to play a bunch of other red, which if you don't like the level 0 red package, which I'm a huge fan of the level 0 red, but you don't want to handcuff yourself to having to play a bunch of Reen and Archer if you want to play more of obviously you want to play the Shiro, and if if you'd rather play the Sakura Brainstormer, or if you want to, if you're using the Drop Searcher, the Shiro level 0, like, you can't play the old Reen with the Meta Fate level 0 package. You just can't. So that Reen is strictly for the Reen and Archer deck, which is fine. That deck is fine. Like, I built it for this channel. That deck is fine, and I enjoy playing it. This is better. Hands down, it's better. It's better because it's on attack. It's better because it gets bigger. You have almost the same selectivity. It is on a gate instead of a Soxel, which I don't like as much, but if you want to play 8 gate, like, you could, if you wanted, play this at level 1. If you want more red to maybe have better access to your free refreshes, right? Because as of right now, even the meta list is only playing, 5 red cards. It's playing 1 of the Drop Searcher and 4 of the free refresh, in part because you need the red in order to get the free refresh. It's that important of a card. So if you want to have better access to that, and you're willing to swap out the level 1 combo because maybe you weren't a huge fan of the Sakura anyway, maybe you play this.
I mean, you don't play it over Sakura, not in the current deck, but
I think this could be better than the Sakura, honestly.
Not in the current build.
Because the Sakura, hear me out. I'm looking at this. Sakura gets up to 55. This gets up to 65. It's on attack instead of on reverse, and the only downside is that you don't have the exact selectivity. You have to mill 2 off the top, which you get mill, and you're fixing for red a lot more, so you'll actually have a lot more access to your free refreshes. And it's on a gate, which, like, is good. I think in a vacuum, gate's usually better than gold bar, so I think this is playable. I think this is legitimately playable. And if you want to, have better access to your free refreshes, so you need more red, I think you can absolutely replace the Sakura with this.
I think it is a nice combo. I don't think that it's gonna reach that point.
I think the only reason that you keep the Sakura is if you want to keep 8 gold bar.
8 gold bar is also a relatively important staple of the deck itself because of that deck. And it has enough consistency with other pieces with 8 gold bar in that deck. If you want to run this, I think it's perfectly runnable, and I think it's a decent card. I don't think that it fits in that deck. You need a different deck for it. Because you need to be building around what the combo actually does, as opposed to trying to fit it in where other combos are placed.
In a vacuum, this is the better combo.
Oh, in a vacuum, yeah. That's what I'm saying in the view of the set.
Yeah. In the context of the 8 bar build, keep the Sakura if you want to keep 8 bar. If you're not married to 8 bar, run this. Or run the Rider. If you are married to 8 bar, at least give Rider a shot.
Yeah, I would say Rider has a better shot than this in that deck because of the set. But I think that there's some interesting parts in red that may make this worthwhile. So moving on to our last one with the 3/2 black Sakura.
On play, draw 2, pitch 1. When this attacks and you have the gate in the climax area, you stock the top 3 cards of your deck. And its ability is on attack, pay 3, pitch 1, look at the bottom 6, and deal damage based on how many climaxes are sent to the waiting room from those bottom 6. Most important thing to notice here, I think, is that the burn itself has nothing to do with the climax. You can do this effect without the climax on the field. The climax gives you the stock to let you do it essentially for free.
Yep, and it has the unplayed draw 1. So you're drawing into and if you have the climax, you have the stock to make this combo happen. Like it is giving it to you for free, with the combo.
Yep. So it literally pays for itself, and it looks at the bottom 6, puts them all in the waiting room. Any climaxes that are there, it burns for. So, in a typical situation, the bottom 18 cards of a normally compressed deck are probably going to have anywhere from 4 to 6 climaxes in it, sometimes more. So you're probably going to burn somewhere between 4 and 6 when you do this with all 3 Sakuras. If you do it 3 times with the Sakura, you're probably going to do this 3 times. If you do this 3 times with the Sakura, you're probably going to burn for 4 to 6 damage. And they're going to be 1s and 2s, which is nice because they're more likely to stick. Is this the red top end that we've been waiting for? Because, like, as someone who plays Red Fate and likes Red Fate, I've been waiting for a better top end level 3 red combo. And I don't know if this is it. I don't know if this is it. It doesn't get power, and it doesn't heal, and it sits at 95.
I really think this is an off finisher versus an actual end game.
I agree. I agree. I think this is something that you attack with at the end of your turn. If you need to push for win, you have some other, and like, who knows what other, there's got to be a Saber Alter level 3 climax combo, right? There's got to be a red Saber combo coming in Heaven's Feel 2. I don't think it's a standalone end game. I think it's an off finisher. To have the option to do this without the combo is, I think, also very interesting.
Yeah, no, I just think it's an off finisher.
You mentioned this has been printed before in JP. It's in Saikano, right?
This effect happens quite often. It doesn't heal. It doesn't gain power, like you said. So it's like it's hard to make it the true end game.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to swing at 10-5 without any help.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, maybe this is the list where you play that green level 0. Bringing it full circle. Anyway, so yeah, thanks again to Randall Muramoto. Thank you for the translations. Link to the Facebook post with all of the information that he put in the description. That will be there, so you can check that out for yourself. One last item of business, Brandon.
Yeah.
So, we got challenged.
The gauntlet has been thrown down.
The gauntlet has been thrown down by casually Weiss Schwarz, who wants to play Mr. Clock Tower. And I don't know which one of us is Mr. Clock Tower.
Well, first off, thank you. Thank you for the shout out.
Yes, thank you for the shout out. We appreciate it. Love your stuff as well. Link to his channel in the description. You should subscribe. He's got some really good stuff there as well. So, challenge accepted. Yeah, we will figure out what this looks like. We will get this game/games in. It'll be a good time. So yeah, just let us know. We'll get in touch somehow. I know that you exist on the social internet, so one way or the other, we will connect and we'll make this happen. Realistically, I'll probably reach out to you on Twitter because I know you're there and I'm there, so we'll see how this. We'll see what we can do. But in any case, thank you for the shout out, and you are on. We'll make this happen. Thank you for joining us for this long and winding episode of the Clock Tower. As always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. We will be back with open play on Thursday. I will have my deck profile up on Tuesday. I cannot believe it's already time for me to put another deck out there, but here we are. My next deck will be out a week from today, and we'll have gameplay for that the following Thursday. We also will have we do have another event in a couple of weeks, closer to the end of the month, that we'll be talking about. Probably not on the next episode, but the following episode, so episode 12 of the Clock Tower. But 2 weeks from now, we'll come back with episode 11. In any case, that's all happening. More things, always more things. I'm waving my arms around to just gesture wildly into the void that there are more videos and things that you should click on, and they will be in places where you can click on them. So in any case, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday. Until then, thank you again. Have a good one.
We'll see you then.